What's this? You're down 5,000 gold. What should you do now?
The early game and now you're down 5k gold. What should you do next? Well, most people would probably spam the surrender vote right about now, and I already know the top comment on this video will be someone making an FF joke at the video's title. This is a pretty normal reaction we see all the time, since of course it feels like there is nothing to entirely lose the initiative when you are this far behind, and there is practically no educational content out there that teaches you what to do in a losing situation.
That's true.
People
I
just
agree.
give up and surrender games often way too quickly. This video is my attempt to try and help combat this problem with League's culture, because there is still so much you can do in a game where you're losing in order to poke holes and test your opponents so you can try to mount a comeback in a game that feels doomed.
Yeah.
Winning a losing game feels great, right? Well, here is everything you need to know in order to do it. As I mentioned in the video intro, when you are losing, you don't get much of a say over what happens on the map, and instead you need to play more reactively to what your opponent does. This might seem like a bad thing, but it's actually extremely liberating and allows you to make use of a different kind of macro that only becomes available to you when you are losing. And the best example of this is easy to see in the context of contesting mid-waves at Prio. Here, red team is down 6,000 gold, yet 3 of them still try to walk up mid outside the safety of their tower in order to catch a wave. Of course, by doing this, you just get engaged on and die. A fight without a vision advantage that happens in the open area of mid lane like this is never going to be a winning fight when you're 6k gold behind. So you of course can't contest a mid wave as it arrives. Here is the big question we need to answer though. Why is it actually so important to contest the mid wave as it arrives? Well, that's because of something I've spoken about several times before.
Tempo.
Wave to wave macro. To quickly get everyone on the same page, the fundamental mechanic that all macro in the game is based upon is that minion waves arrive slightly faster in mid lane than what they do in the side lane.
Yes.
This allows a player who quickly kills a minion wave as it arrives to then move into
But in the early game, they arrive at the same time, and then it slowly desyncs up to 14 minutes.
the adjacent
Or
lane,
I think it's 10 minutes.
arriving in time to use the minion wave that arrives slightly later in the side lane to push down towers with a numbers advantage. But this isn't something you need to worry about when losing. If you can't contest a wave within the first 2 to 3 seconds of its arrival, there is no reason to contest it at all until you have to catch it at your tower. You either catch a wave as soon as it arrives so that you can utilize wave to wave macro, or you catch it when it goes into your tower at the last possible second. There simply is no in between. And that's what...
Actually, hope he provides some nuance here, because I really don't agree with this. Time is still valuable even if you can't move all the way aside. Because, for example, let's say you push this mid wave. The longer it takes me to catch this mid wave, the longer it takes for me to rotate the jungle if I want to defend jungle with my team. The longer it takes me to rotate to the other side of the jungle, the longer it takes me to recall if I need to recall. It's still best to get the mid wave as fast as possible. And if you're losing, yes, you want to be more willing to like not contest waves, but you still want to get the wave ASAP. And it's also important, like, if you're not getting the mid wave, like, the minions will die, you know? So...
contest a wave within the first 2 to 3 seconds.
let's see what he says. Maybe he provides some nuance.
There is no reason to contest it at all until you have to catch it at your tower. You either catch a wave as soon as it arrives so that you can utilize wave to wave macro, or you catch it when it goes into your tower at the last possible second. There simply is no in between. And that's what people get wrong. People often make the mistake of standing around in mid, just waiting for their opponent to push in the wave before they then catch it. Instead, these players should be making use of this newfound freedom they have by not having to contest the wave, and they should use that to test their opponent. Now here our Varus is 7k gold down, and obviously he's not going to be able to contest this wave on its arrival when down 7k gold, because otherwise he'll just die, which means he doesn't have to be here at all. He can be here when the wave gets the turret, but he doesn't have to be there any sooner. So when you watch what he actually does, he just walks around in the middle of mid lane for about 15 seconds, achieving nothing. And what's worse is when you look at this whole thing from the enemy's point of view, they don't know where Varus is. Oh, never mind, they do. And this is a problem because this takes away our ability to test our opponent. Which
I mean, what Varus, he should, like, maybe hover the Vi a little bit here, but what the Varus is doing isn't bad. Like, this is goes against what he said earlier, which is like, either you should catch it all the way here, or you push it up far, and you don't do anything in between. But it's better for Varus to one-shot this wave ASAP, so that he can match wherever Jinx goes. Like if Jinx goes to bot now, he can be closer to bot, you know? Or he can do the opposite. If Jinx goes to bot, if Varus wants to do a cross map top, he wants to kill this wave as soon as possible. So I'm a bit confused. I don't really agree so far, but...
The only thing you get to do when you're losing like this. Now, in order for blue team to do anything, they need to get vision in our bot side jungle, since right now it doesn't feel very safe in there. Now, what they can't do is walk in and face check, because we might be stacking a bush with our whole team, and that's how they thread the game. So what they generally do instead is they would push the mid wave, wait till someone shows on the wave, and then walk into the jungle. Since they see one enemy mid, they know they'll have a numbers advantage. So
Yeah.
they would push, see an enemy, and walk in. This is what most people do. They push, and they walk in. Did you see the step that they missed? This is how we test them.
That's true, that's true. A lot of people skip the step of seeing if somebody's mid.
A Varus player right now, instead of spending his 15 seconds of free time walking around mid showing unnecessarily, should spend that free time stacking in the jungle with his team in a bush, and then we test our opponent. If the wave moves forward, and the opponent preemptively walks in before they've seen us mid, we can just drop the mid wave and trade it for a kill instead. And worst case, if our opponent is good enough and is patient and they're waiting, we can just come out after accepting defeat, catch our wave, and be sad that they did the right thing. But the key is, we tested them. Make sure you get a ward down in mid so you can see what the enemy does next after they clear the wave. Then hide in the jungle between waves and react to what they do. If you do decide that you have to catch the wave, do it as shown here. At the last possible second when the wave hits the turret, but importantly, pull the wave with you into the jungle to maximize the amount of time you spend in the jungle defending it. This makes it way harder for your opponent to take vision in that area, and you'll be...
And one important thing that is missing here is like, he's level 16 with 2.5 items. Like this Varus would not kill this wave that fast, you know? So you often don't have the luxury of one-shotting the wave like this when you're behind. Like one of the most annoying things that happens when you're behind is your wave clear gets really bad, which is like, that often means that you have to try to get this wave earlier like the Varus does, because otherwise it takes 10 years to clear the wave. And then you maybe even lose the opportunity to try to walk into either side of the jungle, because now you've spent 10 seconds clearing the wave. So it's a bit more nuanced than he's saying, but it is a good play to try to like cheese on the timer where enemies crash the wave before you show on the wave.
Testing your opponent like this is how you can get back into the game when you're losing. People will fail these kind of checks constantly. Rakan, for example, face-checked a bush and got stunned into a wall by Poppy, at the exact same moment that both of his side laners were showing on vision without having TP up, and his ADC had walked off in order to take the red buff with the jungler, leaving him alone. Rakan literally face-checked the jungle, completely alone, and it might have been a kill if only Varus was in position to test him on doing this.
I mean, Varus and... they don't kill Rakan here, right? Rakan is level 10, this Varus does no damage, but I agree with the concept. Like, it's good for ADC to, like, sit in fog and wait until enemy pushes wave, rather than just showing on the wave like Varus did.
Pick on a support like this is far more valuable than you think. Once you add up the death timer and time it takes to walk out of base afterwards, a kill like this puts an enemy out of action for almost 2 minutes, which is important because if an enemy doesn't extend their lead, they begin to lose it. Of course, in League you can only have 6 items, and level 18 is the level cap. So once the winning team maxes out their build, they won't get any stronger, and you'll eventually catch back up, putting the game at a 50-50 state, if you can survive until 6 items. Everyone knows that already. But what most people don't consider is that the relative value of a lead diminishes as the game goes on.
That's a good point. I hope that all of you guys think about this in game, but it's something that I think about a lot, right? Like a gold lead at 5 minutes, if it's 4k gold lead at 5 minutes, that's insane. 4k gold lead at 30 minutes, it's really whatever, you know? Really whatever. A 4k gold lead at 40 minutes, literally who cares? Who the fuck cares, you know? The longer the game goes, the less gold lead matters, because the less as well is like, if I have 5k gold, right, and you have 9k gold, holy shit, you're fucking rich, you're nearly double my gold. But if I have 30k gold, and you have 34k gold, okay, you have like 11% more gold than me. It's nearly nothing, you know? It's a little bit more, you're a little bit richer, but not that much. Not that big of a deal, right? So it's really important to consider like the context of the gold lead. Because 4k gold is not just 4k gold.
Maxes out on 6 items. This is very easily understood by looking at XP requirements for a level up. At level 1, you only need 280 XP for a level up, which is about 4.5 million minions worth. Meanwhile, at level 17, you need 1880 XP, which is over 30 million minions worth of XP. Imagine a situation where you lose the first wave of the game and fall a full level down on your opponent at just level 1. If that lead stays consistent and doesn't grow, then by level 5, your lane opponent would only be half a level ahead of you instead of a full level ahead of you. And by level 10, you probably wouldn't even notice that they had an XP lead over you anymore, because the amount of XP needed for a level up has grown so much. The same kind of works with gold in a way because of penetration items. When your opponent is winning, they will likely be a higher level than you because of the extra kills, minions, and neutral objectives that they've taken. Through level ups, a champion gains stats. Some of the main stats that they gain are magic resist and, more importantly, armor. Over the course of a game, a generic ADC champion like Ashe gains 78 armor through level ups alone. This gives her over 50% damage reduction against physical damage. So in the late game, even assassins...
I think people underestimate levels a lot and how strong they are later on in the game.
...who want to kill a squishy carry like Ashe need to build a percentage armor penetration item to combat the armor gained through level ups. This problem is obviously made even worse against an opponent who is actually building armor items. They get faster level ups, granting them base armor and more gold.
And this is also why you should always have LDR eventually in your build, right? Even if they don't have armor, everybody will have above 100 armor just from levels, so you should always have LDR.
Letting them finish their armor items even quicker. Meanwhile, you receive less gold, which increases the time it takes for you to finish your core items and get to the super important armor penetration items that will make you deal damage again. For this reason, compositions with tanks spike incredibly hard around 1 to 2 items, especially when they're ahead. Think of it like this. Being down 1 full level feels absolutely unplayable when you have 2 items and your opponent has 3. You simply don't deal damage against the 200 armor Ornn who is 4 levels higher.
Even if you're Kai'Sa Vayne,
Later on into the game, when they
of course there's exceptions, right? Kai'Sa, you're gonna go avoid stuff if you're going AP. Well, if you're going 80 Kai'Sa, you should go LDR, yeah, or Terminus. I mean, you're gonna go some sort of pen item. And Vayne, you don't have to go pen item because she's so much true damage, but even on her, Terminus is good.
As you actually have the armor penetration needed to counter your opponent's build. Also, the level gap between you and your opponent has now shrunk to only be a 3-level lead instead of a 4, despite the fact that the actual amount of XP that you both have relative to one another hasn't changed. All of this is just a long way of explaining something that is very simple to understand. When you're losing, you don't have to do anything. You will slowly catch back up to your opponent if they don't extend their lead over you, so don't feel panicked to force some kind of a fight in order to make a comeback. It's on your opponent now to figure out how to make the game end. The only thing you...
I somewhat agree, but at the same time, this gets less and less applicable the higher elo you go. Because it's the easiest way I'd explain it is that if you are behind, right, against good players, so let's say it's like a challenger game, but I know this is kind of alienating for 99% of you. I think what he's saying is really useful for nearly all of you guys. If you're playing in, even in master tier, it's better to just try to wait for enemy mistakes rather than overforcing anything, because the mistakes will come. The mistakes will come. But as you play against better and better players, you need to be the one trying to fish for mistakes, because the slower the game goes, the easier it is to just continue building that lead. Because League is a game that's like, it's kind of solved in a lot of ways if you're ahead, right? You set up vision on one side, that's step number 1. You get control, you push in waves, you deny enemy jungle camps, you do objectives. Then eventually you get soul, you get Nash, and then usually you end the game, right? And while you're doing that, your gold lead is going to grow significantly, right? And then eventually get to a point where it's insurmountable. And this can happen even if you don't give up kills, just from enemy like taking jungle camps, taking objectives, taking towers, rotating well, and all that jazz. But in lower elo, gold leads kind of are like this. Until they eventually win, right? So all you need to do, if you are Timmy here, you need to not be a part of this. You know what I mean? When enemy does this big throw, you try to make the gold lead go in your favor. And you don't throw it back. And even in Master Tier, it's kind of throw city, back and forth. And usually it stems from people just fighting without numbers advantage. They don't think about teleport, and they can't count. You need to count how many enemy champions there are, and count how many is on your team. If your jungler is recalling, don't go and face check a bush. If your support has no wards, play safe, wait for them to recall. If your top laner has no TP and enemy top has TP or enemy top can move first, don't fight. You know, a lot of the time it's just about not doing the big mistake, and then enemy will make the mistake and they'll throw it back to you. And you want to look at these like slopes where they're throwing the game, and you want to take advantage of it and make that your comeback.
You can do is to constantly test your opponent, as we already learned at the start of the video, and to perfect your defensive setup, which is what we'll talk about now. Ward placement should change dramatically when you're behind, since you can't expect to actually defend the wards that you've placed. Instead of placing wards in optimal locations like inside of bushes or in the center of key intersections where they're more likely to be spotted, instead place your wards in
It's good to have
places
sneaky
like
wards,
this.
yeah.
These are places that give slightly less information, but are far more likely to survive against an opponent who is actively searching.
Sneaky wards on Nash are also very
It shouldn't
good.
be too hard to imagine why these wards are so good when you just imagine what your opponent is going to do with their sweeper and their pink wards.
Yeah.
They're probably going to walk into your jungle and take one or two routes with their sweeper. They're going to do something like this, or they're going to do something like this.
Yeah.
Where they're going to place their pinks, maybe a pink here, maybe a pink here, but you're going to notice that all of these wards that I've placed have dodged.
This is a good point.
Key locations where people are most.
The problem is this is for support mains, and unfortunately, they don't have access to the internet, so they're not going to be able to see this video. But it's a good attempt.
To go with the sweeping lens, or where they're most likely going to put a pink ward, which is going to be in bushes and in key intersections. Another good rule of thumb is that when you're winning, you want more sweeping lens trinkets, and when you're
Support mains are not free thinkers.
so check the neutral objectives from a safe distance without having to face check. Most teams in pro play will also follow this exact same philosophy. As you can see here, the red team who
Not
was losing
free
has 3 blue
thinkers.
trinkets so that they can.
That's the best insult I've ever heard. Not free thinkers, yeah. My support is not a free thinker, that's for sure.
Always check the Baron without having to face check it.
Oh yeah, blue trinkets as well. Good point, good point. I mean, this is hard to do in solo queue, right? Where it's like, you can't really tell your team to buy blue trinkets. But blue trinkets do increase in value when you are behind. So blue trinkets increase in value when you're behind, and red trinkets increase in value when you're ahead. It's denying vision, very useful when you're ahead, and getting vision without face checking, very useful when you're behind.
Fun side note, just take a look at the location of the wards that red team support has placed in preparation for the Baron defense.
Hey, he copied him. Who copied who?
These are exactly the same wards.
What if I ADC plus support?
Not only that,
Then
though,
you're
but
you're
also
normal.
pay attention to the
You're a
way
free
that
thinker.
the Ezreal catches the mid wave. He doesn't stand around waiting for it to get pushed in. He only catches it when it hits the turret, and when he does catch it, he pulls it all the way over into his jungle in order to maximize the amount of time that he spends in the jungle, just like I did in my Varus example.
Yeah,
This
that's
was
true.
the first pro match that I opened when trying to look for an example of a losing team buying blue
We can tell, brother.
trinkets, and I only found this clip after I filmed all of those previous segments,
Kappa!
by the way. So it's nice for me to have some
No, I'm joking.
confirmation that everything I teach is still being used by the new generation of pro players in regards to their defensive setups. Now, before you go, do me a big
Bro,
favor.
why does he have so many Nyla clips farming in the bay?
Go click the subscribe button, or even leave a comment with any tips you have for other viewers.
I think good video. Good video. Slightly disagree. I think like one thing that he could have elaborated a little bit upon was the nuance of like catching waves. I think he could have definitely explained that a little bit better. Because it is still valuable to catch the wave as soon as possible, and it's also not... The way he explained it made you think like the wave should hit tower. But even as an example, the Ezreal here, he's not letting the wave... Like, Ezreal is taking the wave as soon as he can, you know what I mean? He's not letting it hit tower, because that would like really slow down everything down. You wouldn't really want to do that. It would just delay his tempo and make him wait so long.
Only
But overall, it's a good video. It gets my like. I liked it. I like it. It was good.